What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be going over the Indianapolis Supercross and everything you might need to know as far as who's in, who's out, the race format, how many laps they might actually end up doing, and then just kind of recapping the championship points and where everyone's at and what to watch for. So let's get into it. Alright, so first up, we're just going to kind of go over everyone who's out. Some of these guys you may already know, but we're just going to go through the list. So in the 250 class, we got Guillaume Ferez, who is obviously out with his broken femur. Talked about that a while back. Evan Ferry riding for Triumph. He's out with his separated shoulder. Don't look for him to be back till after the break, obviously. Faulkner, we all saw what happened to him. He's obviously still out. Devin Harriman got landed on in Daytona. He's still out with all of his laundry list of injuries. Enzo Lopes is unfortunately still out, trying to recover from his arm pump surgery. Jet Reynolds separated his shoulder in free practice at the opening round, and unfortunately he had to actually end up having surgery, so he's going to be out for an extended period of time. Cody Schock, we all saw what happened with him and Hayden Deegan. He's out with his collarbone. Dylan Schwartz has a broken right radius and 2 torn ligaments in his hand, so he's going to be out. Now in the 450 class, we all know Christian Craig is out, but he ended up having to have a 4th surgery on his elbow. Apparently it kept dislocating as he was riding, so that was part of the problem he was having. So he's going to be out for an extended period of time. He does sound like he's trying to come back, so hopefully we can see him at least race outdoors or something. Really hope that he can put something together this season. Dylan Ferrandis is going to be out with a sickness as well as a banged up knee. Justin Hill looks like he's still going to be out from being landed on in Daytona. Hunter Lawrence is going to be out with a broken shoulder blade, as well as Dean Wilson, also out with his broken shoulder blade. Kevin Moranz is returning after a couple weeks off due to his concussion. And then also look for Freddie Noren to be back with his beat up ankle, but he's pushing through it, so good for him. Alright, so if you guys didn't already know, this is going to be a Triple Crown round. Now, it is in Indianapolis, so they're going to be starting at 7 Eastern. Now remember, because it's a Triple Crown, the LCQ is not going to be during the broadcast. It's going to be on Race Day Live, which is going to be at 5:10 Eastern. Now, Indianapolis does tend to have softer dirt. It's known to break down quite a bit. So I did find it pretty interesting that they decided to hold a Triple Crown here. Obviously, it also has a pretty small stadium. If you look at the track map, the footprint doesn't look like it's very big. There's not a lot of straightaways. So they could have a shorter lap time, which would also add to the laps done. So I was curious about that, and I went ahead and just did some basic numbers to try to see how many laps they might really run compared to where we normally run. And the results are pretty interesting, so let's go ahead and jump into that. So first off, we just got to establish a baseline as far as what is quote-unquote standard run time for a Supercross event. So looking at the normal amount of laps or run time of a normal standard round, if you take the heat races, the LCQ, and the 2 main events, you end up with 1 hour and 9 minutes of race time plus 8 laps because there's 8 rounds of racing, so it's always plus 1 lap. So anyways, 1 hour, 9 minutes plus 8 laps. Now, if you look at the Triple Crown format, it's also plus 8 laps, so you could basically disregard that portion of it. But it ends up being 1 hour and 16 minutes, so it's basically an extra 7 minutes longer than normal by the time you do the LCQs and then the 6 main events. So in comparison, the Triple Crown is really only an extra 7 minutes of race time on the track, which might not sound like a lot at first, but it's at least an extra 7 to 8 laps more than normal. However, that's before you consider the fact that this track should be significantly shorter in lap times than the average Supercross track. So you might be wondering, well, how much shorter is it really, and how much could that really affect the track breaking down? Well, have no fear, I did some basic math and just some approximations based off of last year's lap times just to kind of give us a ballpark idea. So looking at last year's lap times, they were running around a 45-second lap time on the 450s. If you go to the main event, it looks like Ken Roczen, the race winner, averaged about a 47-second lap time. So let's just go ahead and bump that up to 50 seconds for the overall average lap time for the night. Now, obviously, this is not an exact average lap time, but we're just going to make some approximations here. So if you take that 50 seconds and you average it out over the hour and 16 minutes of race time plus the 8 laps, they're going to end up doing somewhere between 99 and 100 laps on the track, which is quite a bit when you compare that to, say, last weekend, where Jet averaged a 54-second lap time in the main event. So say if you add 3 seconds onto that, like I did onto Kenny's last year, that would bump it up to 57, which then if you take that and you average that out over the amount of time they were racing, they ended up doing somewhere between 80 and 81 laps based off of that math. So potentially you're looking at around an extra 20 laps on the track, on a track that already breaks down quite a bit. Now, obviously, that's not anything to say that they are going to do 20 more laps, but I think it's definitely possible. So we're just really going to have to watch the lap times for one during practice and see if they're in the mid to low 40s in practice, then definitely going to have to keep an eye on the track breaking down quite a bit. But if the lap times are a little bit higher, then that should help out quite a bit. But definitely keep your eyes on that as far as the track breaking down. I just thought it was worth noting. The one good thing I would say about it being a Triple Crown is that obviously the races are shorter. They're either 10 or 12-minute main events. So with that being a shorter lap time track, that should help with lappers. You know, we're not going to get so deep into lappers like you normally would in a 20-minute main event. So I think that part could have came into consideration when they chose to do a Triple Crown. But anyways, that's really all I have as far as the track goes. So let's go ahead and just do a quick recap on where everyone's at in the points and what to watch for as we go into the night show. So starting off in the 250 class, obviously Tom Vial's had a killer last couple of rounds, so he's up on top. He's 1 point over Cameron McAdoo. In third is Pierce Brown. He's 5 points back. Now, Brown hasn't finished outside the top 5 yet this season, so he's looking to keep that going. Tied for fourth, we got Hayden Deegan and Cody Schock. Obviously, Cody Schock is not going to be racing with us this weekend, unfortunately, so he's going to be dropping back. But Hayden, he's looking to bounce back after last weekend. He's 12 points back. Then tied for sixth, we got Seth Hammaker and Daxton Bennick. They're both 15 points back, and they're far from out of it, but they haven't really shown any signs as far as they're going to fight their way up to the top. Obviously, Hammaker looks exceptionally good. He's been on the podium the last 2 rounds, so he could potentially gain some points, but he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to be in this title fight. And then lastly, I want to talk about Max Anstey. So he's in 8th. He was your points leader going into last round, and then obviously had the bike failure. He's 21 points down. The fact that he's able to go from the red plate to 21 points down in 1 round is absolutely incredible. Really feel for Max, but he's 21 points down in 8th. Moving on to the 450 class, obviously we got Jet on top. He's really starting to take a hold of this championship. In second, Cooper Webb, he's only 13 points back. So not a lot of points, but if you look at the way things are going right now, it feels like it's a lot bigger of a gap than it is. So Cooper, he's going to really have to take advantage of this being a Triple Crown. Obviously, Jet has struggled at Triple Crowns, so this could be a chance for these guys to kind of make up some ground. But they need to do more than just make up some ground. They really need to take a chunk out of this points lead that Jet's starting to build, so we'll have to see how that goes. But anyways, in third, you got Chase Sexton. He's already 20 points back, so not quite a full race out yet, but one more slip up and he will be. And then in fourth, we have Eli Tomac. He's 26 points back, so he's already a full race out. Jet could literally not race this weekend, and he would still be ahead of Eli. In fifth, we have Ken Roxon, 32 points back. As you can see, Jet's really starting to take off with this championship points lead. I think that if he wins this Triple Crown, it's really going to be hard for these guys to believe they're still in the fight. Obviously, it's not over till it's over, and even if he has quite a points lead, he could do kind of like what Eli did last year and miss the last 2 rounds and still lose the championship. So he does have to stay on the bike and finish every race. But for some reason, this feels like it's almost a last-ditch effort to somehow try to keep these guys alive in the championship. And if they don't do something here, then it's going to be kind of over. So we'll have to see how that goes. That's how I feel about it. But that's really all I have for this video so far, guys. So really appreciate you guys coming in here. If you made it this far, feel free to drop a like, subscribe. I'm going to be doing these every weekend to try to keep you guys up to date as the race comes along. And we'll be doing update videos all season long throughout the week. So if that's something you're here for, feel free to subscribe. But with all that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.